So welcome everyone to the second edition of the New South Wales Volleyball Referees Association online referee training series. These are being held on Monday and Thursdays during the month of August 2025. The purpose of these series is to be able to focus on refereeing topics and techniques that we believe would benefit referees of all levels, whether those just starting out to those preparing for AYVC or other national events. The New South Wales Volleyball Referees Association is exactly what the name suggests. We are the Association for Volleyball Referees in New South Wales, and we are fortunate to have a wealth of national and international experience that are passionate about lifting your game. On Monday, we heard from Keith Suckling with his excellent presentation on player management, and I'm sure you'd all agree it was insightful and highly worthwhile. Today's topic, which I'll be presenting, is on officiating teamwork. For those that don't know me, I started refereeing because of the introduction of the SVL mandatory referee rule, and now I'm a level 4 and Asian international referee, also currently serving as the president of New South Wales Volleyball Referees Association. For our members who I haven't met in person yet, I'm one of, but not the only one, responsible for spamming your inboxes full of volleyball refereeing opportunities. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. So what we're going to go through today, just a simple level, what's the goal of officiating? How do we achieve this goal? How do we define the officiating team, or who are they? What are the main principles in working as a team, especially in the volleyball referee context, and some tips and scenarios which I hope you find either serving as a reminder or something stimulating or something that you can take away and apply in your own game. So what's the goal of officiating? It's pretty simple, really. Is to facilitate the smooth running of the match. It's keeping the spotlight on the two teams in the field of play, and it's to promote the sport we all love for everyone to continue to enjoy. These sort of things should be at the core every time you put on that iconic blue referee shirt that we all love. It's very distinct, and if it's not blue and another color, I don't know. But anyway, this is the goal that we're trying to achieve when we referee or officiate a match, and that should be the goal. So how do we achieve this? Pretty straightforward. I'm sure we all know this. We need to be prepared. We need to be knowledgeable. We need to be personable. That's the human aspect of it. And we need to be part of a team. Now, that's pretty much what this topic today is about. So just remember, if you're going to remember one thing from today, it's no referee can carry alone. That's the overarching topic, working as a team. So who are the officiating team when we talk about the team? First, we have the first referee, second referee, scorer, assistant scorer, line judges, and in this context, I'm also including the coaches. The reason why I'm doing that is because everyone involved with the game is there ultimately to let the game shine. Let the players shine. That's what we're there to do. And that's what we're working towards. I'm very proud of these little smiley faces, but if no one else likes them, too bad. I like them. So working as a team, what does this mean? And what does this sort of entail in terms of working as a team? Firstly, as a start, you got to know your own role. That's pretty straightforward. You got to do your role well. Doing your own job well is good because that helps the team achieve its goals. And then knowing other people's roles. So what's everyone else doing? Or what are they meant to be doing? And then understanding how each person's role fits within the context of the ultimate goal. And lastly, facilitating so others can do their role well. Now, if you recall Keith's presentation, he talks about a referee, not just about a referee's authority, but also, more importantly, their leadership. And that's what we're talking about here. And remember, no referee can carry alone. It's be a recurring theme. So, how can we know what everyone's role is? It's pretty simple. It's in the rule book. It actually defines what everyone's role is. We're going to read through each single one word for word, but that would be pretty boring. But we can all do that in our own time, and I'm sure we do that all the time. But knowing the roles isn't just from reading, it's also from practice and experience. That's why we want to regularly practice not just first refereeing, but second refereeing, doing the score sheet here and there, line judging. It's all important. Because through those practicals and experience, you encounter situations and sort of see things from different perspectives that help you as a referee be able to understand and manage the other roles as well. So let's go through some examples that show a clear lack of teamwork. One, the first referee just runs a solo show. They just want to control, do everything themselves, make every call, don't involve the second referee or the line judges. There might as well be statues. The R2 feels compelled to show they know more than the R1. It's not really a good lack of teamwork. The R2 tries to show that the R1 that they know more about R1 than the R1. Scorer feels compelled to give live instructions to the R2. The scorer's job's to do scoring, not necessarily tell the R2 what to do all the time. The R2 and line judge don't provide any support to the first referee. They sort of leave them out there or don't back them up or don't signal to them. The first referee doesn't provide any support to the rest of the team. Doesn't really acknowledge their calls, doesn't sort of take in their calls, or they're getting harassed by a coach or a team and they just sort of stand there and let them suffer. Post-match debriefs emphasize sort of more on self-praise, what I did well, and picking out faults of everyone else. That's not really good teamwork there, because there's no sort of winning and losing within the team. The official team achieves their goal or they don't. The first referee or second referee doesn't wait for the scorer to finish their job, or the first referee doesn't wait for the second referee to be ready and just gets on with the game. In all these instances, ultimately the game suffers. You get disruptions, confusion, incorrect rulings. The focus and the spotlight goes on the officials and the officiating team rather than the game itself. So I'm sure we all may have encountered situations like this, and they're just, examples of no teamwork. So let's counter this with some examples of positive examples of teamwork. The R1 actively seeks input from and acknowledges the second ref and line judge's calls. The R2 supports the R1 in their role and focuses on their duties. The scorer supports the R2 and focuses on their duties, doing your job well. The second ref and line judges are working well together with the R1. The R1 supports and protects their officiating team. In that example, they are sort of, the team sort of disputing a line judge call, and straight away they notice and toot, get away. Just don't do that. Don't bother my team. The post-match debrief balances the view on yourself and your teammates. It's not just what you did well and what others didn't do well. It's a balanced view. The R1, R2 waits for the scorer to be ready. R1 waits for the R2 to be ready. Things like that. And ultimately, having good teamwork, the spectacle benefits, the game of volleyball benefits. and it leads to smooth or smoother refereeing, which is the ultimate goal. So some practical sort of tips or things that you can consider doing for referees. And referees, I'm talking about R1, R2 generally, but referees, that's most of us on the call. Arrive early. It's pretty obvious. We all do that, I'm sure. Sorry, I'm getting a bit. Engage your referee, ref delegate or chief referee. Go find them before protocol starts. Introduce yourself. Have a quick chat if you can. Introduce if you don't know them. Say things like, hi, my name's Sam. I'll be doing this match. If you got any feedback for me during the game, or after the game, I'd love to hear it. Or I'm working on this, or I'm going to AYVC, or I've been having trouble with this part of refereeing. Can you have a look and see? Anything, as short or as long as you want. Engage your first and second referee. Have a quick catch up, quick chat. Talk about sort of what I like to do as a first or second referee is speak to the first or second referee, introduce, build that rapport, talk about things like, in this situation, what do you want me to do? In that situation, what do you want to do? Or what are you working on? Or what are you focused on? And sort of just have that common understanding. Engage your line judges. It's a thing we preach all the time. Debrief your line judges before the match. Again, you can see the common theme here. Go talk to people is basically what we're saying. Introduce yourself, find out who your line judges are, brief them on their expectations, communicate that you depend on them, that you trust them, that you're working as a team, things like that. Scorers, same thing. Introduce, some duty teams do scorers that aren't very confident. Try and sort of suss that out and provide support or, do what you need, but just saying hello. And engage the coaches. Go introduce yourself. Smile. That's it, really. You don't want to have long conversations, but, just go up to the coach. Hi, my name's Sam. I'll be your first referee. I'll be your second referee today. Let's hope we have a good match. Just a small sort of introduction like that sort of builds that little bit of rapport, trust, and sort of helps the game go smoother. So as a scenario, how do you deal with subpar teammates? And by that, I sort of mean people who aren't doing their job well or properly. How do you, as a referee, as a teammate, deal with that? And that's kind of pretty important. So how do you act towards them? Or do you seek to sort of try to help them improve and reassure them and build confidence, because they're your team? Or do you tend to show sort of disappointment or, put on an angry face or, give them the no or something, or just straight out ignore them and leave them in the cold? Do you adapt your game to, how they're performing? Or do you make it obvious that you're unimpressed with them? Oh, they should know better, or why aren't they doing this or that? These are the sort of things that, as a teammate, how are you sort of dealing with that? As a leader, how are you dealing with that? Are you going to help them get back on their game and improve? Or are you going to help them sort of understand what might not be working for them and then looking for them to improve to ultimately help the game? Or are you just going to be like, this person's rubbish, I just, and then just be angry all game? Are there people who aren't performing to your expectations? Are they, trying their best? Or are they disinterested? And they're kind of two different things to discern that might appear the same, in the sense they might be making bad calls or not being attentive, or not being attentive, but just missing things. I guess the point is, are you trying to understand them and help them improve, or are you just unhappy with the result? And that's blatantly clear to everyone. I think that reflection of sort of teamwork and working as a team is pretty important. So for practical test between R1 and R2, for teamwork, if you're R1, before the start of each rally, in your scan, pre-rally scan, the last person I look at just before I blow my whistle is the R2, because is there a late sub happening, or is there some issue with the scorers they're sorting out, or are they sort of distracted by something? That's kind of just a habit that would be good to involve, and that sort of improves that smoothness between R1 and R2. During the rally, do you give your R2 quick glances, or do you just not look at them at all because you're focused on the ball and the play? The R2 may have seen something during the rally. It might be signaling something. Pinchy, go get a mommy. Sorry, I've been interrupted here. Do you make it a habit to glance at them? Because, at a critical moment, they might be showing you a signal or something. Or are you missing that altogether? At the end of each rally, just before awarding the point, you glance at your line judges, then make eye contact. Look at your R2 just before awarding the point. So, the usual sequence, 2, quick glance, and you've made your mind up and you're about to stick your arm out and you're looking at the R2, because you'll find a lot of information there that will help your decision making. Learn to love their face is what I like to say. You look at the second referee's face a lot during a match, and that's what you got to do. If you and the second referee whistle at the same time, how are you going to resolve that? Are you going to signal as first ref, or are you going to let the second referee signal and you don't? That's one of the things that I like to discuss with the first referee or second referee before a match. I might say something like, if we whistle at the same time, you're R2, I'm going to let you do your signal first. Having that common understanding helps it a lot to be a lot smoother. The last thing you want to see is both referees whistle and both referees going through their signaling for the same or different things at the same time. It just does not show teamwork, and it's not very smooth. As a first referee, give your second referee the chance to whistle things that other second referees call or within their responsibilities. Easiest one is ball hitting the antenna on the second referee side. That's the second referee's whistle and signal. So when the ball hits the antenna, give them a second to make that call. And if they don't, then you call, you whistle, that's fine. You're the first referee. But that's sort of the thing that's kind of helps, that sort of teamwork aspect, if that makes sense. If you're the second referee, before the start of each rally, watch when the first referee is ready to authorize serve. Sorry, I can't get my picture out of the arm. And when they're ready to authorize the serve, step forward and be ready to reject any game interruption requests, timeout, substitutions, things like that are late. So that's kind of that teamwork. So second referee, step back between rallies, have a look. Team's doing anything? No, yes, no. First referee's about to stick out the arm to serve. Step in. From that point, anyone coming, you should be already quickly managing that. During the rally, assist with signals. You see a four touch or a double contact or something. Quick little brief signal, discreet. And once the first referee has seen it, whether they whistle or not, it's up to them. It's their call at the end of the day, but you're just giving them information. And if they don't see it, say you've put it up and the game's moved on, then just put your hands down and get on with the game. You don't want to be like, I saw a double, and they're not looking at you and you're like waving at them. That's not really going to be good teamwork or good optics for that, right? The first referee may have seen the same contact and ruled differently. And, it's assist, not insist. I'm sure everyone's heard that a billion times. At the end of each rally, a second referee moving to the losing side is your body language. That's your signaling. If you know. If you don't know, don't move. But if you know which team lost the rally, say a touch or whatever, moving to the losing side is your way of signaling to the first referee, this team lost the point. Small discreet touch, or no touch, however people do it. Those signals, if you need to do it. That's another thing I like to work out with my first and second referee. As a second referee, I don't signal very much unless there's some people, the ball slaps off the block and goes out, and the second referee is signaling. To me, it's kind of a bit unnecessary, right? It's blatantly obvious, but that's just the style that I like to operate with. And so I tell my first referee, I'm only going to call the less obvious ones. I'm not going to call obvious ones. And if they want me to call everything, okay, I'm calling everything. But if they're like, that's fine, okay, that's fine. Sort of that conversation builds that understanding that helps that sort of teamwork aspect. Same as the other one. If you whistle simultaneously, are you going to signal? First referee going to signal? And if you're whistling a fault, move to the losing side first, then make your signal, and then the team to serve is determined by the first referee. So you need to follow the first referee, or at the same time, or follow. A lot of second referees, you'll see, they've caught a net touch, they'll do their signaling, and they'll stick their arm out straight away before the first referee. That's not really teamwork, right? Because you're whistling the fault, and the first referee determines the team to serve, and you follow. Okay, a scenario. You're R2, coach of Team A is heated up, and as the match is going on, they're showing more and more frustration, and they're getting more and more unhappy. Right as the first referee is about to authorize the serve, this coach says, timeout. Right as they're about to do it. As the second referee, what do you do? What would you do? Would you whistle the timeout? Would you reject it? Would you just ignore it? Any thoughts, anyone? Happy to make this a bit interactive here. Okay. I guess everyone is straight down. I think in this sort of scenario, normally I would reject it. I'll whistle if the first referee is like literally about to blow their whistle, right? But in some scenarios, you kind of weigh up. If I don't call this, they're going to blow up even more. It's going to be worse for the game. So you might have to make that snap judgment call. And even though the first referee looks like they're about to whistle for serve, you quickly blow your whistle for timeout. There's no right or wrong answer. It really is context dependent, but it was just sort of a situation that I've experienced where you're kind of balancing what's good for the game versus the teamwork aspect. So I'll put it in there. Okay. More practical tips between first referee and your line judges before the start of each rally in your scan. Check your line judges are there and ready. Check they're not chasing a ball or being distracted or something like that. It's just part of it. During the rally, quick glances at your line judges, particularly if the ball's played near the antenna or near the external crossing space, when there's a pancake that you're not 100% sure or it may have touched the floor. Quick glance, see if they're signaling something. That's part of your good teamwork. At the end of each rally, just like the second referee, before awarding the point, quick glance at your line judges. You don't have to do it every rally, especially if the ball sort of bounces in the center of the court, and looking at the far one. But even if you think there's no touch, glance both line judges. There could have been a touch that they could see that you couldn't. But the other reason to glance at them is you want to keep them engaged. Check that they're doing their job, right? Ball bounces, 50 centimeters near the line. It's clearly in. Are they not signaling? Well, if you glance at them, you'll see whether they signal or not. And if they're not, I like to keep looking at them, waiting for the signal. It's like, right? And then they do it. It shows that I am looking for their call and I value their call. Because when it's tight or when it's really close, you're going to need their call. So if they're not making their call regularly or they don't think that you need their call, then they'll stop calling. And then difficult from there. Another scenario, for your own sort of thoughts. For the first referee, team A spikes the ball and is near the line. In your view, it landed about 10 centimeters inside the line. But the line judge is really quick and confident, goes out. The bench players that are opposite that line judge immediately react like, oh, right? What do you do as first referee? What would you do? Nice.
Hi, Sam. It's Karen here.
Hi.
I would so call the signal. So whistle to say that the point has ended. I'd call the line judge over just to have a little chat with them and just give everybody a moment to cool off. And then I would make my call, because ultimately the line judge is advising you, they're not making the call.
Yeah, it's good. One way to manage the situation and letting everyone cool down is good. Thank you for sharing.
Hi, Sam. Sorry.
Yep.
To add as well, sometimes for me, I would glance at the line judge and do a confirmation discrete signaling as well, if it's in or out, because sometimes you can see on their face whether they are sure for certain or not. And if I determine that, they're sort of 50-50, that's when I bring them in as well for that extra time. I find that sort of cut down the delay a little bit more. But yeah, obviously it depends on the scenario.
Yeah, that's good too. I like how you bring out the confidence in their call. Did you see what they saw? Do you see on their face that they really didn't see and they're just guessing? Or did they quickly see it? Yeah, it's definitely good points and good considerations. There's no right or wrong. For me personally, if I was sure that the ball was in, I would just tell the line judge, lower your flag, and then just overrule and say it's my call. Get on. That's one way. There are lots of different ways to handle it, but it's just sort of, as a teamwork, what's going to A, give the best outcome for the game, and then B, still maintain that teamwork and that trust and dependence with you and your line judge. Are you just looking at them, giving a stern shake and overruling? Or are you saying, look, it's okay, it's going to be my call, don't worry. And how do you reassure them after you've overruled them? Kind of that sort of context. Does the way you approach this scenario change if you saw it sort of very close to the line or on the line, for instance? Are you doing the same process? Are you approaching the same way? Would you overrule? Or would you just go with the call? Again, the point of this scenario is to think about how you might manage it while doing what's best for the game and also the team, making sure you can maintain that sort of teamwork and trust and confidence. For me, if I think it's near the line or on the line, I'd probably go with the line judge because they're in the best position, provided they're looking. There's context as well. If this line judge has been good pretty much all game, is there a reason to distrust that call now? We don't have the luxury of video referee or Hawkeye, whatever it is. So we got to manage the situation as best as we can. Bring him in for a quick chat if that's your style. Yeah, that's the point. If you're going to overall, do it respectfully, objectively, and clearly. Right? It's okay to overall because you're not going to blow up the game for the sake of protecting like one person's feelings. You need to balance that and do it in a way that upholds the integrity of the game, but also maintains that teamwork and trust. Another sort of practical thing between R2 and coaches before the match, introduce with your R1, of course. As I said before, just go to the coach, smile, hi, we're your referees today. Nice to meet you. Good luck with the game, blah, blah, blah. Another thing to do is give them the lineup sheets before, like at the start of protocol. So they've got all 5 ready or whatever. And getting the lineup sheets at the required time is part of sort of the interaction you need to do. In between rallies, touched on it before as R2, step back and observe. In between rallies, teams may call timeouts or subs, and you're working with the teams to make sure they do it properly and facilitating that. If you're, thinking what you're going to have for dinner after the match and you're missing a call or a sub coming in or something, not going to work. It's not really good teamwork. We want those interruptions to run as smoothly as possible, and that requires teamwork between the R2 and the coaches. Most referees have played the game or at least been around the game a lot. The context of the match. Teams lost 3-4 points in a row and they're falling back. That timeout's coming. Are you stepping back and sort of half expecting it? Or are you just stepping back mechanically and just not paying attention? Or, they do a double sub between the setter and the opposite and they're about to rotate from back to front court again. A double sub's coming, right? And if they've forgotten, are you giving a little quick pause, quick glance? Are you going to do this or not? No, yes. And then they start running. It works out. It's smooth, right? So that's sort of the teamwork stuff. In set intervals, this is one thing I see quite a lot. The set interval is 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes the teams have before they have to come back on court. So you have time to check the lineups. The coaches are meant to give their lineup sheets as they cross the bench. That's what's meant to happen. But a lot of coaches don't. But then a lot of second referees don't do anything about it. And then right as time 2.5 minutes are up, second referee blows on them on, and it's like, oh wait, we don't have their lineup. So they scurry over, coach, give me your lineup. And the scorer has to write it down. Everyone's got to check. It's like, it's just not smooth. And you've got that teamwork with the coaches. So as they're crossing, if they're not giving it, as soon as the teams have crossed and there's no issues with their sort of passing, no argy-bargy or whatever, then first thing to do, go to the coaches. Respectfully ask for the lineup sheet or stand near enough so that or just give them a little, please. And some take their time still and just wait. They look like they're taking time. Check the other one. Point is be proactive, get it done. That gives your scorer time to write it and check it properly. And then they're all done and dusted. Teams can have their talk or whatever. Get on the court at 2:30. Quickly check the lineups because you've already got them ready. Scorer's ready to go. We're good to go. All right? It's just sort of that teamwork aspect. Scenario, UN conventions, what I like to call them, is calling your R2 and line judge up to the stand or the game captains regularly for lengthy discussions. Is that a sign of good teamwork? So it's an open question. Karen gave the example, in a controversial call them over, give people time to cool down. It's pretty good. But, I guess the question I ask is, yes, you might be conferring to come to the right decision, but if you're calling them all the time or too much and you're having very long discussions, then where's the focus? Where's the spotlight? It's on the referees constantly. Game gets delayed, blah, blah, right? So I guess the challenge is, how can you improve your teamwork while minimizing disruptions and delays? Anyway. So in summary, stick to your lane. Pretty straightforward. Don't hang others out to dry. Help each other to do what's best for the game. Be supportive and smooth. Build rapport before, during, and after matches. And remember, no referee can carry a match alone. At the end of the day, we're all here to promote the game, facilitate the game as best as we can. And that does require good teamwork, good techniques, good understanding, good relationships between people, good communication, efficient communication. And there are lots of things that you can incorporate into your game as habits or build habits into that achieve this, right? Yeah, so that's pretty much what I had prepared. Any questions or scenarios or topics of agreement, disagreement that you want to raise, or anything on your mind? All makes perfect sense. We're all great teammates already. Like I said, most referees have played the game and are fully aware of the aspect of teamwork and working as a team to achieve a common goal, win the game, I guess. What everyone's roles are, how to approach and deal with teammates, how to encourage teammates. And I guess what we're saying is that also applies in an officiating context too. And it's just as important. Ensure the game goes well. All good? Alrighty. Thanks, George. Hand up, George. You wanted to say something?
Yes, sorry guys, just been on the road and I was listening, but just walked in now. Thanks, Sam. Great presentation. And I think it's every time we're going to present, we're just going to try and relate this to the next event or the next big event that our referees are going to, which is AYVC, I guess. Everyone who's level 3 today, level 3 and above, has been to an event, whether it's AYVC. And back in the days, there was only AJVC when we were developing. Now there's AYVs, there's youth, and there's juniors. It's very important to, in my opinion, for every referee to build on their own development. And we always wish for a very healthy, competitive environment, I guess. Because if you're planning or if you aim to become a better referee, more often than not, if it's done the right way, you just bring everyone up with you. And that's what we want to encourage. I'm very competitive by nature still today. But when I was developing as a developing referee, I was always wanted to do the best I can. But I cannot remember one day I've tried to do it on the expense of someone else. And that paid really big dividends, because every game you're doing as a referee, there's someone watching, someone who's assessing you, or who's, could be your mentor, could be your, again, assessor, could be your referee coach. Everyone's taking note. From your body language, they'll know. From your actions, they'll know. And guess what? Every time the referees who actually support their peers are the ones that are mostly praised. And they are they are the most accepted people, including when they make mistakes. You develop that sense of respect. You gain that respect of people around you more than people who are just trying to shine no matter what. But you know what? We're all human. I did say I don't know. I've never done it. I can't remember. Maybe I've done it once or twice. I don't know. But it's not in me, right? So I'm also human. So I may have done it once or twice. Maybe, who knows? But this is not what I focus on. This is not what I want. And my advice, I think our advice would be, is just everyone likes a team player. And if you don't get noticed from the first game you do that, eventually you will get noticed. And at the end of your career, probably that will be the most thing people are going to be talking about when it comes to management. My 2 cents worth. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Sam, for organizing. I'm sure this is valuable for everyone listening and participating. Thanks.
Thanks, George. Full agreement. Full agreement. Anyone else have anything to raise or question? All good? Alrighty. Okay. I think something just came in the chat. Sorry, I haven't been monitoring chat. Oh, there's quite a lot. Okay, sorry, I'll just go back on the chat a little bit. So, question was: a line judge has clearly made an incorrect call, but you overrule them. They can feel like it's personal. What's your tip on overcoming this conflict? So, for me, it's how. It's a combination of how your body language, how you deal with them, how you've dealt with them throughout the match. So again, if you've built that rapport and trust, and you're constantly looking at them or whatever, it's a lot easier to get over one of these things, I guess. But if it's someone you don't really have much connection with or haven't engaged much, then yeah, they could take it a bit more personally. Like I said, respectfully overruling and blatantly overruling, it's very subtle, but it can make an impact on the person. After the call's made, giving them a glance or a little, smile or a little, it's okay, no worries, or timeout or set interval, just call them over, have a quick chat, and go, smooth it over that way. That's kind of how I do it. But like I said, I think how personal they take it would be also a function of how the whole sort of match and relationship has gone, if that makes sense. Yeah. Let's see if they... Okay. So another question is, how strict should R1 be about feet outside the lines before and after the whistle? So I assume you're talking about if they're stepping outside the court at the moment of the service hit. That's what you're referring to. Look, if they're out, they're out. Blow it once, let them know why you blew it, and they shouldn't do it again. One of those art of refereeing things, a fault's a fault, right? But also, if it's 24-23, are you really going to blow that? You might want to be focusing at a different part of the court at that moment of the service hit. But yeah, fault's a fault, but I guess that applies to a lot of refereeing. What do you think is the best way to brief a second referee, maybe when it's their first few times refereeing? Great question. That's part of it at the start. Hello, second referee. Oh, you've only done it a couple of times. So you already got to engage to find out this sort of information. What I like to do is I'll just say, all right, so, tell me what you're going to be doing or what you think the second referee's job is, what the main things of the second referee is. And I'll give you some sort of answer. They might be like, look for net touches and feed over or something or whatever. You kind of sort of suss where they're at. And what I like to do is try to give them one more. So, make sure you're moving to the blocking side or, things like that, or whatever it is. Give them one tip to work on and help them understand the role a bit better. And then also, if they're nervous or something, just say, look, don't worry, we're a team. I'll be up there, call what you see. It's fine. We'll work together. We'll make sure it goes well. Don't worry if you miss something. We'll make it work. So sort of giving them a bit of reassurance that they're not on their own. They're not carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders and that you're there to support them. That's kind of my suggestion. Everyone works differently, but that kind of helps, I think. There's nothing else coming up. This is series number 2. We have 6 more. Hope these sort of short, sharp, deep sessions have been insightful or helpful, or at least interesting. The past 2. I'm sure the next 6 will only get better. So please tune in to all of those. And thank you. Just keep the ball flying. Thanks for your time tonight. And we'll send these slides out and hopefully the recordings work for both and we'll go on from there. Thanks everyone.